But afterwards, you looked back over at the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were just going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kira or Mr. Holden anywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Mom approached you with an amused look on her face. Seems like you're holding up some Holden things. Surprised, you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right. Some of it belonged to their neighbors. Would you mind dropping it off now? Looking down again at everything you were carrying, you sighed. A teasing grin played at your lips. The Holdens is a long walk from here. Cole snorted and laughed next to you, making your grin widen. Mom chuckled and shook her head. You can hack it, and then you'll get to experience the joy of a job well done. You laughed happily and nodded. Mom smiled fondly. Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped, waiting for you.
Good night.
Good night, Cove. I'll see you inside, Faith. Night. You caught up to Cove and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kira and Mr. Holden busily unpacking already. Things were scattered on counters and they were moving around each other, putting the items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door. Hey, it's nice seeing you again already. It's nice seeing you again already, Faye. Her teasing tone brought a slight smile on your face. You hefted the stuff in your arms a little closer. I ended up with things of yours from the beach. Oh, thanks for getting that to us. You can put it here on that coffee table. Mr. Holden pointed at the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what it didn't belong to your family here. Cove put his things down on the floor just at his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You needed a second of rest and a minute to restituate it all. You went over to where the others were too. Kira opened her arms wide, wanting to hug you. You accepted. Without any hesitation, you went to Kira and let her pull you into a hug. You squeezed her back just as tight. Her hug was filled with affection, and you hoped that she could feel how much you cared about her too. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. You're welcome. Today was amazing. Kira eventually released you, but patted the tops of your shoulders as a final gesture.
Thank you.
Every time I've gotten to coming by, it's been an absolutely joy. Things really couldn't have worked out better. Mr. Holden took a step closer to you. Kira moved aside to let him say goodbye too. He grinned. Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor, and not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. I didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I really, truly appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks again, Faye, so much. At that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. I'm really glad that you're my neighbor. Mr. Holden's brow furrowed with emotion. Your words really did touch him. Me too. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back at who you used to be, the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend.
See you.
Bye, Faye, you softly. Then Cove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had carried into the house. Don't worry about all that. I'll put stuff away in a few minutes. Right, I need to do the same with my family. I figured. Cove walked you to the door and held it open, taking one last check around to make sure you had all your things to bring home. He went into the road. He leaned his body against the door frame, not following you out. So this is it, huh? Actually, no, that's not what I mean. His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit, like he was trying to banish the pensive thoughts.
Bye.
I'll just say bye. Yeah, bye. It won't be long before you'll see me again. You offered him a small wave goodbye with one of your hands. Cole reached forward and patted your arm reassuringly, and then he kept his hand there, lightly holding onto your arm. He nodded. One of his hands grabbed onto the door handle and firmly held it. He was stopping himself from coming along with you. As you walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him. You laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. You waved. Cole waved back with his whole arm. Night. Things couldn't be dragged out anymore. After one more shared smile, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered in the living room. They were busy unpacking and cleaning. You added the things you brought to the pile on the kitchen counter. Mom stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit. She yawned loudly. I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow? Yes, honestly, it's too late for this.
Thanks.
Please and thank you. Ma put her hands on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not one who liked to leave a mess about, but she sighed.
All right.
I suppose we can make an exception to the usual rule. It has been a really long day. Liz grinned contentedly. Lee wasted no time in skipping over to you and hooked you into a side hug. Good night. I hope you have the loveliest of dreams. I hope you have good dreams too. Lee's smile widened till it went from ear to ear. That would be a fantastic way to cap off today and start tomorrow. Here's to us, Faye, tonight, tomorrow, and forever. Yeah, family forever. Lee leaned in close to whisper in your ear. You didn't fail to catch the teasing look on your face.
Aww.
Exactly, there's no escape. That got a laugh out of you. You lightly pushed her shoulder. Lee stretched her arms high over her head. She yawned loudly and looked at you with tired eyes. I think that's my cue to head to bed. Bye. I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz. She laughed at that, and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. Night-night, I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day, and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. Everything okay? Her gaze moved away, and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for Liz to compose her thoughts. Just, it's been a good summer. It was nice to come back home. You nodded, and Liz gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. Love you, baby sister. I love you too. Liz stopped walking and stared at you for a moment. She smiled softly at you. Get some sleep now. Morning will be here faster than you know it. I will. When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. Aren't you heading up to bed too? I want to relax first. Desperately, you needed some time to decompress and clear your mind. You worried if you went off to bed now that you would end up staring at the ceiling all night. Okay? Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug.
Love you.
Alright, you do what you need to do. I love you. When you were done hugging Mom pulled you into another hug. Their actions, basically holding you off to the other, had you laughing jovially.
I love you.
I love you so much. I love you too. Ah, they both couldn't resist taking turns hugging you again. Your smile widened. It felt good to be so loved. Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight. Good night, sweetie. Night. After that, your moms headed off towards their bedroom down the hill. You were about to turn the other direction when you heard Mom's voice. And don't let the bedbugs bite. You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. Time had passed, but you weren't entirely sure how much. Sighing, you sat up on the couch. It was a good rest, and all of your tired muscles felt quite relaxed. You got up, planning on going to bed, when something out the window caught your eye. Your feet brought you right in front of the large windows spanning the length of the back wall. You stared out into the hills behind your house. As if on cue, your phone came on, alerting you of a news notification. It was Cove. Wanna hang out on the hill tonight? Something inside told you that this was the right kind of the night to take a trip out there. You sent him back a very quick message. Yeah. You went over to the front door and stepping over the threshold, you gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way to the poppy hill. With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hills behind your house. Up ahead at the very top, silhouette beneath the night sky, was a familiar figure already waiting there. Smiling, you wondered just how he always got there first. You even had the advantage of living closer. Then again, and maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow, Cove was intrinsically linked with this space. After all these years, it would be weird to scan this horizon and not find them there, as surreal as the shore without the sea. The distance between you was growing shorter by the second, hearing the grass and earth crunch under your feet. Cove turned, a grin spread over his face as he saw you. You took your place standing behind him on the crest of the poppy hill, looking out over the sea. Same as you'd done on countless times since he'd first arrived, when you'd found him on this very same spot. Faye, he had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place. You looked at him expectantly. There's something I've always kind of wondered about. He cocked his head, giving you a sidelong glance. What did you think about when we met? I was just a kid you'd never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house. He chuckled, his eyes drifting towards the sea beyond, before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back to you made it clear that he was genuinely invested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remembered what initially struck you in that moment. It was as if it had only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing the neon pink cast you had to wear that summer. Cole burst into genuine laughter at your reply. I guess that's fair. It didn't kind of stand out. Sighing a bit, you continued to reminisce about this first meeting. I also remember feeling bad about what was happening. I remember that too. He ran a hand through his hair, and you knew his lines of questioning wasn't at the end, even before he spoke again. Do you remember what you thought about me? You know, as a person, was I annoying or mean or... I just worried about you because you were so upset. His eyes widened dolefully, and he hung his head like a guilty puppy.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for upsetting you. Cove's hand drifted to the scar on his arm, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off, shrunken gradually over the ears as his body healed, then dwarfed in comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. He gave a half smile, not mean in your eye. I feel bad now. The thoughts I had were, well, considering what you were thinking, I come across as a lot worse of a kid. You didn't like me? No, it definitely wasn't that. Cove lifted his head up, finally committing to meet your eyes fully once more. I remember you that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'd ever be able to forget. I can picture the way you looked back at then when I first saw you standing right here. I still know the expression on your face when you choose to sit with me in the grass. He chuckled half derisively, interrupting his own monologue. You scared me at first. I figured I'd be alone out there until I had to face my dad again, and then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place, but in that moment, you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening and how it made me feel. And you listened to me, you stayed with me. He sighed, then bit his lips as he gave a small smile. I was a little bit spoiled growing up. You let him continue. He looked off again, seeking clarity for his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky. What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that. Things didn't simply happen. That would be weird, according to my little kid brain. It made far more sense than that everything in my life had a specific connection to me, somehow, right? He sought affirmation in your new wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike logic. So at the time, you felt almost unreal, like you weren't just anyone, some other kid who happened to live in that neighborhood with your own whole world, with your own whole life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. No, to me, you were there so that you could find me when I was lost. I kind of expected it all to vanish like a dream when that night was over. I would wake up and everything would be the same again. I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home, with both my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like when I went back, or the table where I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. And if I couldn't imagine it, how could I think it was something actually happening? I couldn't grasp my new reality. It was too big for me to hold all at once. So I never thought I'd see you again. Then Cove beamed at you, his eyes shining bright. And I never, ever would have been able to guess that 10 years later, when I was grown up, the two of us would still be together. I'm glad this is how things went.
Me too.
But the smile faded from his face as his eyebrows drew together. That was the worst day of my life. At the time, the day my whole family broke apart, it was too heavy for me to even think about. I felt that way for I don't know how long. He held a hand over his heart, connecting with the pain he felt as a child, and looked at you earnestly.
It's
But
okay.
now, everything is better with me, and my dad, and my mom, and between the two of us. So when I remember that time, it's not the point that my life was over. It's just the day I met you. Thank you for all of this. No, thank you. Cove sighed contentedly. His voice was as delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned up this hill. He tilted his head up, thoughts lost in sparse clouds above. I wonder how late it is. I guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever. You could just use your phone to check. You could still text your dad about what you're doing. I'm gonna message my mom's. You might appreciate it,
I
probably.
guess.
You were pleased to see Cole slip his phone out of his pocket and type away at it. You also brought your phone out long enough to shoot off of text. They wouldn't see it anytime soon, but they'd be in the loop once they were up. Are you going to lay in the grass now? Wow, how'd you know? You're predictable. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down onto the ground, and laid on his back, his usual way of spending time there. You also laid on your back. You took your own spot next to him in the grass, brushing the blades of grass aside a bit with your hand. The both of you fully settled in to relax on the hill. It felt like just the beginning of one of your nightly outings, but then you realized the sun was peeking out over the horizon. Cole spoke up with a disbelieving tone.
Huh.
It really was late. Your neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn. However, not like this. He was normally an early sleeper, early riser. This unexpected sunrise particularly awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. Cove then propped himself up on the backs of his arms and looked at you with a soft expression on his face. Do you want to go back home? I could carry you if you're too tired. No, I want to stay here. You couldn't resist a yawn, but you were serious. It couldn't be time to go already. Cove chuckled affectionately.
I
Okay,
get it.
but it's been a long day. We've done a lot of things, like really a lot. It has to end sometime. I know, you're right. Yeah, too bad. I am on that one, huh? But we can stay if you want to. Cole smiled brightly at you, as warm as the new rays of the sun that were tickling your skin. In that moment, you couldn't have appreciated him being there more. You situated yourself to be comfortable. Good morning, Cove. He gave you a bent smile and went for the opposite sentiment.
Good
Good night,
night.
Faye. The two of you remained together on the familiar poppy hill where you first met until the world began to fade and blur. You were falling asleep. A few more gentle words drifted into your consciousness.
See you tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were safe and relaxed. Everything that had come before this had reassured you of that. You were confident that when you opened them again, things would be okay. You opened your eyes. Instead of the walls of your room, you were surrounded by open sky. It was not soft pillows and sheets underneath you, but the bed of earth and grass that you'd taken last night. The day welcomed you with a shining sun, a relaxing breeze, and the chirping songs of birds. You cupped your face with your hands as you sat up, feeling imprint of the blades of grass weaving lines into your cheeks. Faye. Hearing your name, you lowered your hands and looked around. There he was, your most influential neighbor, Cole Holden. He had made himself very comfortable, laying on his stomach with shoes kicked off and a flower in his hand. Good morning. It was not really morning anymore. Cove laughed, tickled with the overall situation and simply being able to spend time like this. Told you I'd see you tomorrow. I'm glad you were right. Cove's face lit up in a broad smile. Me too, but there wasn't really any doubt. Cove turned his head up to the sky, his expression content. Looks like it's gonna be a nice day. We'll have to come up with something to do to make the most of it. He trailed off, blinking slowly in the sunlight. Someday, when we're even older than we are now, I wonder what we'll end up remembering this moment for. What will we feel when we look back at it? Will it be the same as what we are feeling right now?
It's nice.
I can't see what the future is gonna be like again. It's going to look like again, but I think that's alright. I think it'll mark another new start for me. Cove's eyebrows lifted as he turned to look at you. That's a good one. I want to think about it like that too. He eyed the hill sprawling out before you, the dawn below, where the wild hill and nature gave way to civilization. Your home and coves laid down on at the bottom, neatly filed among the other houses in the neighborhood. Hey Faye, I bet I can beat you in getting back to the road. You laughed, amused by the wager that reminded you of so many moments in your youth. As much as I like it here, it's okay if we leave now. We can always come back to see the poppies and the fireflies again, right? Cove met your eyes, waiting for what you were going to say in response. Right, I like that. Your comment quirked a wiry smile from Cove. His voice was lifted with mirth. You're really irreplaceable, huh? Cove beamed at you. His expression was so unlike the one he wore when you first found him here, swaddled in sadness and uncertainty. Yet you couldn't help but glimpse that boy once more underneath his bright expression and matured features. Come on. He offered you a hand. You accepted it, your palm fitting around his. Cove lifted himself up, putting you along too, pulling. Our parents probably aren't gonna come running for us this time. We've got to make our own call, and I say that we can't hide away forever. Poppy Hill is just one part of things. There's more out there for us than this time and this place alone. Let's enjoy it. You couldn't say whether you were the one that broke into a run, if Cove had been the one to start it, or if your feet had simultaneously made that choice for you both. The end result was the same, with the two of you dashing down the hill like children, but with the nostalgic revelry that could only come as an adult. As the wind whipped past you, you knew that family and friends were waiting at the end of your sprint. There were more memories to make. After all, life takes another step forward.